Jonathan Quick gets win number 400. Should he be back with the New York Rangers next season? Plus, JT Miller continues to make an immediate impact, and the Rangers rally for a huge 4-1 win over Vegas.
You're Locked on the New York Rangers, your daily podcast on the New York Rangers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, Blue Shirts fans, to episode number 1240 of the Locked On New York Rangers podcast. I'm your host, John Chick. Just want to thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. And today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by FanDuel. New customers can bet just $5, and if you win, you will score $200 in bonus bets. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. And we are, of course, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So the Rangers post an absolutely massive win against the Vegas Golden Knights by a final score of 4-2. They rally in the third period to come from behind to win. Only the second time this has happened all season where the Rangers have trailed going into the third period and came away with the win and came away with a big 2 points. You know, with the way the playoff standings are right now, it goes without saying at this point, but every game is absolutely massive if you're still clinging to the belief that this Ranger team can go on a run, can force their way into the playoffs, especially after the acquisition of JT Miller. Then you got to start stacking some wins, and you can't afford to have this losing streak go any longer. Again, the way the standings are, there's so many teams all bunched together. If you lose 3 games in a row like the Rangers did, or really even 2 games, you're basically going to sink like a stone in the standings, and that's obviously not a good thing, and the Rangers need to end this losing streak as quickly as possible. They do that in this game. It all now comes down to the follow-up. You know, how do they follow up after this win here? Because they've got three games left between now and the 2-week break for the Four Nations face-off. I think how the Rangers play in those 3 upcoming games is going to largely dictate what they do, what their approach is at the NHL trade deadline this season, whether they are conservative buyers. I don't think they're going to go all in. You know, they already made their big move with JT Miller, obviously. I think it would just be complementary players that they add if they are buyers. And if they falter, if they look bad, if they lose all 3 of these next 3 games, then I think you're going to see them sell the guys that are impending UFAs. But as for this win here, again, it's a big one. I sent out a tweet after this game that kind of reminds me of way back in the day with this Ranger team, you know, 2023, 2024, when this was the norm. The Rangers would be down in a game, down going into the third period, and you were still confident that they could and would come back and win the game. You know, if the Rangers went into a third period last season down by a goal, you almost began to think like, man, we got these guys right where we want them, because that was just the norm. They would just come back and win the games on the regular. And of course, this year, it just hasn't happened that much. This is only the second time the entire season that they have been trailing going into the third period and come away with the victory. So I think that pretty much says it all. But for one afternoon, at least, they showed some guts. They showed some resilience here. They fought back in the third period. They executed in the last 20 minutes. They got the win. And the stars were out for the Rangers in this game as well. Big games for Panarin, JT Miller, Mika Zibanejad, just to name a few. But yeah, you know, I think we, as Ranger fans, owe it to ourselves to just kind of enjoy this one, to drink it in a little bit. Like I said, this was the norm last season, and it's been the exception this season. So what I wanted to do to kick off today's episode is just talk a little bit about this comeback, some of the highlights from the third period. I'll offer my thoughts on everything that went down in the final 20 minutes as we go along here. And of course, eventually in today's episode, we will get to Jonathan Quick, because obviously career win number 400, the first American-born goalie to do so. Just a tremendous accomplishment, and for my money, he was as big of a reason as anything or anybody else in this game as far as why the Rangers were able to come back, were able to get the win and the big 2 points. But we'll go right to the third period here. We get Matt Rempe drawing a penalty, not committing one. He was called for a penalty earlier in this game for boarding, and, you know, I don't know. Maybe he got the guy from behind a little bit, but I do think with Matt Rempe, there is a target on his back. But in this case, we got Rempe driving into the offensive zone. He's actually away from the puck, but he's going toward the net, and he gets dragged down by Brett Howden on the play. They both went down to the ice. Rangers go to the power play, and we had a really unique sequence here because the Rangers were passing the puck around quite a bit on the power play. Maybe a little bit too much perimeter passing and not enough shooting for parts of this here, but I think overall the Rangers were moving the puck crisply enough that it looked like something good might come of it. and that eventually did happen. But the unique sequence that I'm talking about here is all 5 Rangers on the ice touched the puck in succession. It basically went all the way around the net, all the way around the offensive zone. JT Miller started it along the boards, and then one after another, one Ranger to the next, and eventually made its way back to JT Miller. He takes a shot. The save is made, but Mika Zibanejad is able to get in there, able to crash the net a little bit and find the puck and stuff at home. He got in there quickly and wasn't going to be denied on this play. And, we've talked about the JT Miller acquisition at great lengths, and rightfully so. It's, a major storyline. But the hope, I think, if you're a Ranger fan, is that his personality, his kind of, bleep you that he plays with, a lot of people have called it that over the last couple of days here. You hope that it starts to rub off on some of these other Rangers at least a little bit. Mika Zibanejad here, not known, I think it's fair to say, for making the gritty in-your-face kind of a play. And not that he did anything otherworldly on this play, but just the fact that he got to the net, that he found the rebound, and that he was able to, fight his way through there and get to it and shove the puck into the net, basically, that bodes well. And when you play with a guy like JT Miller, I think that, you do have to play at a certain pace. You do have to play with a certain energy to be able to keep up. And at least here on the power play, Mika Zibanejad able to do just that, ties the game at 2-2 with 15 minutes to go. It was nice just to see Mika fired up after this. He's in the crease there and he scores the goal and let out a big yell, like, get into it, man. Bring some energy, bring some fire to the rink. And just nice to see that in a big moment here for the Rangers. Then the Rangers, with 8:27 left, they take a 3-2 advantage. They were swarming in the offensive zone. Borgen actually hit the post on a shot from the blue line. And then you've got Mika. He fakes the shot, goes to K'Andre Miller, over to JT Miller. The shot is blocked, but a great retrieval by Artemi Panarin in the corner. He gets it to Mika behind the net. And then Mika passes in front to K'Andre Miller, who shoots and scores. And that gives the Rangers a 3-2 lead with 8:27 to go. And apparently, JT Miller told K'Andre Miller earlier in this game to shoot the puck a little bit quicker, and K'Andre did just that at this moment. And I'm realizing we've got a little bit of an issue here on Locked On New York Rangers going forward, because there are, of course, 2 Millers on the team. So what I'm going to try to do, we'll see if I can remember to do this. We're going to be on a first-name basis with both Millers. JT Miller is JT, K'Andre Miller is K'Andre, or maybe Key. I know that's kind of his nickname among the Ranger players, so we'll see. We'll try to go first name for both of those players moving forward, though. But Raiders are up first time in the game. Again, 8:27 to go. And then we've got just this absolutely massive hit by Will Cooley on Alex Pietrangelo. Clean hit, but man, you won't see a bigger hit than this, where the player that receives the hit, he was basically parallel with the ice. Like, he was like on his back, like looking straight up at the garden rafters, basically. And took a heck of a hit on this. It looked like he was fine. He went down to the ice, obviously very hard, but he got back up, and I'm glad Pietrangelo's okay. But this is what you love to see. You love to see Will Cooley dishing out hits like this. He's challenged by Haig after the play, and Cooley obliges. Feel like this could have been 2 minutes on Vegas here, because clearly Haig was the aggressor and the one that wanted Cooley to drop the gloves, although Cooley then ended up dropping the gloves first. So maybe those two things offset. Who's to say for sure? But the fight happens, and I don't know, Haig landed more punches, but none of them were really that impactful. So I'd call this a draw overall, maybe a slight advantage to Haig. But I also like that one of the first players over, or I think the first player over to Cooley after this, was JT Miller. He went over and stick tapped him as Cooley was going to the penalty box there. And, those two together, that's going to be a lot of fun. They haven't gone to that yet. At least not with any regularity. JT Miller's only been back for 2 games. But sooner or later, we're going to get JT Miller on the same line as Will Cooley. I don't know if we'll see it this year, next year, whatever it might be. But neither one of them is going anywhere anytime soon. And they both play with a lot of physicality, a lot of tenacity, and they've got some skill to their games as well, especially, obviously, JT. But yeah, that was cool to see as well. And then, we get toward the end of the game. There was a great save by Jonathan Quick where he had to dive on the loose puck in the crease before Dorofia could get there. And then an offensive zone faceoff for Vegas. They get the faceoff win. Big slap shot by Mark Stone. That, too, was turned aside by Jonathan Quick. Any minute now, any day, Mark Stone, that weird injury that always seems to bite right around the same time every season, right before the trade deadline, that's going to kick in for Mark Stone. I just can't imagine why this keeps happening. And, then he'll be magically healthy right before game 1 of the playoffs. I always have to take that little pot shot at Vegas anytime the Rangers play them, because it is, I know what they're doing is technically not illegal, but everybody knows what's going on there. And it is ridiculous that they do it every single season. But anyway, The play continues. Rangers go back the other way. Kreider drives to the net. He's able to draw a penalty. And then Rangers go to the power play. And they end up scoring. We get Mika with a really nice cross-ice pass to Artemi Panarin. Panarin puts it off the iron and in 4-2 with 1:41 to go. Nice to see the Rangers convert this, and we don't have to sweat things out at the very end of this game. The Rangers shut it down after that, and my big takeaway, man, wasn't that fun? Wasn't that just a fun win? Seeing the Rangers rally, seeing them come back. It wasn't perfect through 40 minutes. I don't think by a long shot. The first period in particular, Vegas, had the jump on the Rangers. It felt like the vast majority of that period in the Rangers zone, but the Rangers eventually get it together. They rally, they come back, and they get a big 2 points here. And again, we saw that time and time again last season, and nice to see it at least once here this season. And hopefully that's the norm going forward as well, where the Rangers can, show some resilience and battle their way through some things, because too long this season. There was just too much of a portion of this season where the Rangers not only played poorly, but showed next to no fight. And, they're better than that. They can dig down and do at least some of what they did last season. So again, hopefully we see more of that going forward. Going to keep everything rolling in just a second. Want to shift our attention to Jonathan Quick, who had an outstanding game, made a lot of great saves for the Rangers, got win number 400 for his career. We will do that in just a second. All right, we just want to take a minute to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 is here. One game, two teams, endless possibilities, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, or even betting on the coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action. With live betting all game long, you can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. The live betting feature lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field, and the app is super easy to navigate. Plus, knowing that you could place a $5 bet and potentially win $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl, that is the icing on the cake. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 59. All right, let's go ahead and keep everything rolling here. On Locked On New York Rangers, we got a huge shout out to the everydayers, as always, for sticking with this podcast throughout the season. In our next episode, really looking forward to this, we're going to go ahead and do basically a tribute show to Philip Hedl. Was the third longest tenured Ranger right up until the time that he got traded there. And fun fact, all three members of the former kid line for the New York Rangers, Kakko, Hedl, Lafreniere, they all scored a goal yesterday. Now, granted, they did it for three different teams, but that's still kind of cool. And Philip Hedl scoring in his Canucks debut, that's awesome in and of itself. And certainly I'm pulling for Philip Hedl the rest of his career. And I get the feeling I'm certainly not alone there as far as, Ranger fans are concerned. So again, we'll talk about Philip Hedl, everything he went through, all his best moments with the Rangers, all that good stuff in the next episode. But for right now, let's talk about Jonathan Quick posting win number 400 in his slam dunk Hall of Fame career. I figured Quick would get the start in this one. It's the second game of back-to-back, and it had obviously been a while since Quick got a game. The last time he played was January 19th against Montreal. So we're talking about 2 weeks there, give or take. Igor gotten hot for a while, and, given where the Rangers are in the standings, they're going to probably ride him as long as they can, because they got to win games. They got to get points. They got to fight their way back into the playoff spot there. But Quick, he had a couple different cracks at win number 400. Had not been able to get there. He had lost his last three in a row before this one, including the last two in overtime. And I'll be honest, like when I saw that Quick was going to start for this game, first of all, I expected it for the reason I just mentioned. Second game of a back-to-back. He hadn't played in a while. Rangers have a pretty dense schedule right now too, so good opportunity to sit Igor for a game. But I was also kind of relieved when I heard that Quick was going to start, which tells you how it's gone for Igor over the last handful of games here. And I realized, he hasn't always gotten the most help. He hasn't always gotten great play from his defensemen. I thought the game before this one, the one against Boston, the Ranger defensemen were absolutely dreadful in that game. But facts are facts. Igor's last three starts before this one, he had given up a total of 14 goals. And that was right after a three-game stretch where Igor allowed one goal over the span of 3 games. So you go 3 games, you allow one goal, and then you follow it up with 3 games where you allow 14 goals. And that kind of sums up, I think, how it's gone for Igor this season. And again, I realize there's times where he hasn't gotten the support that he needs or that any goalie needs. But the bottom line, this dude is about to be the highest paid goalie in the history of the NHL. He hasn't had a season befitting of that price tag, if we're being honest here. And we're not at the point where we can say, like, well, it's just a slump or, oh, it's early in the season. No, we're down to less than 30 games to go here. So if the Rangers are going to have any chance, they need Igor to step on the gas and get the job done. But quick detour aside here, we're going to go back to Jonathan Quick. Look, the resume speaks for itself. I think anybody that's watched hockey for any amount of time, certainly you're familiar with the career that he's had and how well he's played and how much he meant to the success of those LA Kings team that he played on for so long. 2 cups with the Kings, 1 cup with Vegas, Conn Smythe winner in 2012, 15th goalie in NHL history to get to 400 wins, the first American-born goalie to do so. And he made a lot of really nice saves in this game as well. 400 wins is 400 wins. And I think certainly if you're a goalie in the NHL, it's a tremendous accomplishment no matter how it happens. And obviously, you'll take it any way you can get it. But I do think for Quick, and really any goalie that hits this milestone, it's nice that it happened in a game where Quick was one of the difference makers. He certainly was not a passenger in this game. Rangers were down 1-0. He made some nice saves. Rangers were down 2-1. He continued to make some nice saves. Rangers were up 3-2, having to hold on to a 1-goal lead late in this game. Made a couple of nice saves there as well. He was the number 1 star of this game. And I get the feeling that given the fact that he did just win his 400th game, they probably would have made him the number 1 star no matter what. But he was legitimately the number 1 star in this game. I know Panarin had 3 points. I know Miller had 2 assists. I think Mika, he had a goal, and I want to say an assist in there as well without looking at the box score. So some guys had some big games. Like I mentioned earlier, the Stars were out, but Quick made some great saves in this. Big glove save early in the first period. That was huge. And a couple of really nice saves on deflections in this game. And I always marvel at goalies that can corral those shots that are deflected. I just don't know how you react that fast. I mean, you know how fast these shots get on these goalies, and then it changes direction and goes the other way. And a couple different instances where, Quick's moving to his left. He kicks out his right pad to make a skate save. I don't know how these guys do it. And especially Jonathan Quick. Now, again, all-time legend, one of the best goalies we've ever seen, but he's 39 years old. You would think the flexibility, the just athletic ability would go down a little bit for Quick, and maybe it has a little bit, but he's still got enough in the tank, clearly, to make these saves. He's done a really nice job when it comes to stopping pucks that have been deflected this season, and he did it a couple of times in this game as well. He helped the Rangers weather the storm. The first period in particular, the shot attempts were 31-11 in favor of Vegas. So obviously the Rangers were back on their heels, and very clearly he kept them in it. Gave up a goal late in the first period. Nice to see that the Rangers eventually did rally from that. But a couple of quotes from Jonathan Quick after the game and a couple of other people as well. Quick, and I think this is why Ranger fans were so quick to warm up to him and so fast to accept him, even though this is the dude that beat us in the 2014 Stanley Cup Finals all those years ago. He's accountable, and he's very clearly a team-first guy. This is what he had to say after the game when asked about the 400 wins. He said, "It means I've been lucky enough to play with a lot of great hockey players that value winning and put that above all else. Just grateful that I've been on some great teams." And he included the Rangers in that a little bit later. Yeah, man, this is Jonathan Quick all over. And again, I think this is why, he is as popular as he is with this fan base. Keandre Miller was asked about Jonathan Quick and said that he means everything to this team. He said that, even when Quick isn't playing, he's always finding a way to be part of it in some way, just like opening the door on the bench for the guys to get through, stacking up water for guys to have that ready for them, and just giving some rah-rah speeches every now and then, just finding a way to bring the energy to the bench and whatnot. So Jonathan Quick, the ultimate team guy. Peter Laviolette was asked about him, and I thought this was a great quote too. "If you watch him on a daily basis, it's not hard to figure out why he's reached that number. It's his work ethic. It's the teammate we get to see on a daily basis. Great person, works hard, total professional." And for me, watching Jonathan Quick, it's just that reminder not to bet against a legend, because Quick had fallen on some hard times in recent seasons. He just clearly went through a stretch there where he was not the goalie that I think everybody had gotten used to seeing in the NHL. But the great ones always find a way. They always find a way to kind of reinvent themselves or do something a little bit different and get back in the game and continue to play, solid hockey deep into their careers, well into their late 30s or whatever it might be. And that's true of any sport, but certainly of hockey as well. And Again, a big takeaway is just how much he means to this Ranger team. And don't take my word for it. You can see the scene on the ice after this game ended. Everybody went right to Jonathan Quick. Vincent Trocheck jumped on him, gave him a hug. Vesey and Fox were in there very quickly. A lot of the Ranger defensemen came over to him very fast as well. And once again, Jonathan Quick ends up being the number one star of this game, and rightfully so. And as far as his tenure with the Rangers, when the story is written for Jonathan Quick and he does decide to hang him up, whenever that might be, his tenure as a New York Ranger, that's only going to be a chapter or two at the end of the book, probably. But I've enjoyed this chapter. And like I said, I think most Ranger fans have as well. And just great to see him, even very late in his career, playing some solid hockey for this team. It also kind of begs the question, do we get one more season with Jonathan Quick as a member of the Rangers? We saw last year, I don't remember exactly when it was, but it was in season. The Rangers and Jonathan Quick came to an agreement on a one-year extension. I think something similar could happen. I'm certainly in support of Quick getting another year with the Rangers. He hasn't been quite as good this year as last year, I would argue, but by that same token, the Ranger defense was far better last year than it is this year. So maybe that's just his numbers coming back to earth as a result of the Rangers not playing very good team defense this year. I mean, let's just call it what it is. Look, I mean, there's always, when you're re-signing anybody and they're in their late 30s and Quick will be 40 in the middle of next season, that always carries some risk. But I think that the fact that he's a backup now, there's less on his plate. There's less of a grind every season for Jonathan Quick. He's shown that he can handle it. And like I said, the all-time greats, they're always going to find a way to be the absolute best they can possibly be, even into the twilight of their careers. And I think that's what we're seeing with Jonathan Quick right now. As far as like Dylan Garand, I mean, I know there's some people that want to see him. And if the Rangers fall out of the playoff race, I think for sure you got to get Garand up for at least one game. Just throw him into an NHL game, give him a start, see what he can do. But regardless, I like the idea of Quick being back next season, have Garand spend one more year with the Hartford Wolfpack. The Rangers have had a history of rushing their prospects, and sometimes it does not work out in a very good way at all. But I think, with Garand here, he's doing very well for Hartford, but let's err on the side of caution. Let's have him spend one more year with the Wolfpack, continue to just kind of bolster his resume, hopefully have another nice season next year at the AHL, and then he's ready to go the season after that. But Garand this year, while we're talking about him, 23 games, 268 goals against average, 913 save percentage, 3 shutouts, and a record of 12, 7, and 4. He's been a big-time playoff contributor in the past as well. So all the best to Dylan Garand. But yeah, man, if Jonathan Quick wants to come back for one more season at a reasonable price, I'm all for it. Let's hope the Rangers can make that happen. Or let me know if you feel differently. But I think most Ranger fans would probably be on board with the idea of Quick playing one more season with this team. So going to keep everything rolling in just a second. I want to switch our attention to Jimmy Vesey. He was back in the lineup. He had some interesting quotes not too long ago, and we're going to break all those down in just a second. All right, let's go ahead and close out today's episode by talking a little bit about Jimmy Vesey. He makes his long-awaited return to the lineup. He had some interesting things to say not too long ago after just being a healthy scratch over and over and over again. And obviously everybody wants to play and nobody's happy watching every single game from the press box. We'll get to the quotes in a second. But as far as the reason why Vesey was back in the lineup, it is basically because Adam Edstrom got injured. He was injured in the Boston game, awkward collision in the second period, did not return, was ruled out from going back into the game a little bit later on Saturday against Boston, and then obviously did not play in this game either. Haven't seen anything definitive on Edstrom as far as when he might be back in the lineup, but obviously we'll keep our eye on that going forward. Edstrom's had a good season. That fourth line has really played well together recently, playing the brand of hockey that I think you want to see out of your fourth line. They go out there and they hit and they grind and they work hard. And they went through a little bit of a flurry there where they were scoring some goals too, including Edstrom. So great to see there. And obviously fingers crossed that Edstrom can get back sooner rather than later. But I think that also kind of explains, or at least in part explains, why Jimmy Vesey has been relegated to a healthy scratch for so long. There's only so many spots to go around in this Ranger lineup. There's only so many spots that are up for grabs on a game in and game out basis. And with Jimmy Vesey, you're looking at him as a fourth liner more so than anything else. I think there's times where certainly he's capable of playing up the lineup if need be. But for the most part, he's a fourth liner. That's what he's been for the vast majority of his career. That's what he's been for the most part with the Rangers as well. And when that fourth line has played as well as it has, and you've got Edstrom, Carrick, and Rempe mostly playing well every single game, there's not really a spot for Vesey. They're not going to take Adam Edstrom out of the lineup to make room for Jimmy Vesey, who's an impending UFA and on the wrong side of 30. Edstrom's your homegrown guy, and you're seeing what he can do, and you're getting him more seasoning for the future. You can even say the same thing for Matt Rempe. I mean, Rempe, obviously very unique player. He's kind of a lightning rod for controversy and whatnot, but he's gone out there and mostly done his job. He had a turnover in this game that wasn't good, led to a big rush in the third period for Vegas. But for the most part, Rempe's doing a good job. And Carrick has played a brand of hard-nosed hockey that I think Ranger fans have certainly enjoyed this year as well. So where do you put Jimmy Vesey among that group? There's not really a spot for him. Really, and beyond that, the only spot that's really up for grabs, you would think, is on the third line at the right wing. You had Kaliev there for a while. He's the waiver claim. The Rangers want to see what he can do. Then Johnny Brodzinski got back into the lineup once Kaliev was made the healthy scratch. So there's a lot of guys right now for seemingly like one spot in the lineup, at least when everybody's healthy. And I just don't know how often they're going to go Jimmy Vesey in that spot. And I haven't even mentioned, guys from the AHL. Brennan Hoffman, I think sooner or later, you're certainly going to see him on this Ranger team. If the Rangers fall out of the playoff race, then Hoffman's going to be out there just about every single night, I would have to imagine. Brett Berard, we saw him for a handful of games earlier this year. Now, he is dealing with an injury right now, but once that heals and he gets a couple more games with the Pack, I get the feeling he'll be back up with the Rangers. So there's just not really a spot for Jimmy Vesey right now. And it's unfortunate. I certainly understand his frustration because it's not like he really did anything wrong. Vesey goes out there and I think mostly holds up his end of the deal. He's out there to play a gritty brand of hockey on the fourth line, kill some penalties. And I think for the most part, he's done a pretty solid job, but there's just no upside when it comes to Jimmy Vesey. And I like Vesey a lot, but that's the cold, hard truth. They're not looking at him as a major part of their future. And as I mentioned just a second ago, Vesey is an impending UFA. I think there's a decent chance that he'll be traded before the deadline. Certainly, if the Rangers fall out of the race, he will be. If the Rangers stay in the race, I think there's a decent chance that he still might be. Because at that point, you might be looking to, like I said earlier, get somebody like Hoffman or Berard or even Kaliev, who just got here. Kaliev is obviously quite a bit younger than Jimmy Vesey. Those guys will be bigger priorities than Jimmy Vesey. Even if the Rangers, stand pat at the deadline, they don't ship anybody out. I just don't see that Vesey's going to be valued higher than any of those guys that I just mentioned. So we'll see how it goes there. But to get to Jimmy Vesey's quotes, a couple of these kind of got people talking. He said, "I'm kind of dying by being here." And then he went on to say, "It seems that I have fallen out of favor and have just been cast aside. It feels like I have no role or purpose on this team. I know I have value to teams in this league. I don't know if this is the best place for me now." So that got some people talking, and I'll throw out a quote from Peter Laviolette here as well, and then we'll talk about what Vesey said. Laviolette had this to say: "Jimmy is an important piece of this team. He has proven that. Right now, we've gone with this lineup, and like all the players that aren't in there, we just ask them to keep working hard. We're more than confident in our team and their abilities to come in and make a difference." So Jimmy Vesey, clearly not the first Ranger to speak out about his role with the team and things that are going on. We saw it from Capo Caco. We saw it from Jacob Trouba on his way out the door, basically. We saw it from Zach Jones, who had not played in a while before giving that quote, has not played since giving that quote, does not appear to be in line to make a start anytime soon. I guess you never know for sure, but it seems like he's certainly the odd man out of that group. And I feel like I'm forgetting somebody. Was there somebody else that spoke out as well? Like, that's how you know that a lot of people have been unhappy with their role when it's hard to recall all of them. But, as far as this game goes, I think Vesey did fine. He was out there for 12:34, had a block shot, had a hit, was an even plus minus. He had more ice time than Cooley, Carrick, Rempe, Brodzinski, or Kreider. Only 3 more seconds than Kreider, but it's hard not to notice that Kreider's ice time has certainly been down recently. And, as far as the big picture with Vesey is concerned, I think there's a very, very good chance that regardless of how the Rangers play, you're going to see him dealt at the trade deadline. As far as what you can get for him, probably nothing major, but, we've seen some interesting trades over the years and some return packages that are bigger or smaller than you might expect. The Rangers did get a fourth liner for Ryan Reeves a couple of years ago. They got a second rounder for Elias Anderson. I still don't know how they pulled that off, but they did. First rounder for Nils Lundqvist. I think that's another good example as well. Vesey, though, again, he's going to be a bottom sixer probably anywhere that he goes, and his upside is certainly limited. And whatever team acquires him would only have him for the rest of this season. they could always re-sign him, but he's only under contract for the rest of the season. So yeah, I think that you're looking at probably like a 4th rounder, maybe a 5th rounder for Jimmy Vesey. But again, it just doesn't seem like there's really a spot for him because, like I was discussing earlier, that 4th line is pretty well set, assuming that everybody is healthy, assuming Edstrom can get back out there. So I feel for Vesey. I like him. I think he's played hard. Got to play 80 games with the Rangers last season and, was only a healthy scratch twice. Both of them were right at the start of the season. If I remember correctly, it was 2 of the first 3 games that Jimmy Vesey was a healthy scratch, and he was in the lineup for every game after that. So I get the frustration, totally understand. I think certainly there's probably a team out there that has a 4th line role for him, but with the Rangers right now, I just don't think it makes sense to kind of force him into the lineup. Now, Edstrom's hurt right now, so if you want to get him out there for a couple of games, that's fine. But, I think Vesey hit the nail on the head where he said he just doesn't have a role here. And that's not necessarily his fault. It's not necessarily the Rangers' fault. The team dynamics can change. The roster dynamics can change from one season to the next. And where the Rangers are right now, and with how well the guys on the 4th line have played, it just doesn't make sense to kind of force Vesey into the lineup. So I think that's kind of where things stand. We'll keep an eye on the trade market. We'll see if Jimmy Vesey ends up being dealt at one time or another. But figure we can call it there for today. If you guys would like to get in touch with this podcast, please send an email to lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Once again, that is lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Definitely give us a follow on Twitter as well, @jchick17. Once again, that is @JCHIK17. Thank you guys, as always, for tuning in. Definitely subscribe to the Locked On New York Rangers YouTube channel, and I will see you next time.